This is The Clash, where the real world clashes with a true Christian worldview. Join former professional wrestler Chris Whaley, known as the Masked Saint, who is an author, pastor, and teacher that brings his wrestling skills into the squared circle and tackles real-life issues. Along with Jeff Dixon, best-selling author, internationally known teacher, leader, and pastor who is not afraid to tackle the tough issues of the world we live in. Together they form a tag team of wisdom in The Clash.
Hi, welcome to The Clash, where we take the culture and we allow it to clash into a Christian worldview. And hopefully when we're done, we come up with something that's worth watching, that's informative, entertaining, and maybe you'll grow just a little bit from. I'm joined by Chris Whaley, who is the king of the ring in so many ways, the Masked Saint. And if you don't believe it, you're getting ready to see a t-shirt by our special guest.
Hey, yeah. We've had the opportunity to have Mike McClaskey with us before. I've shared that Mike and I got into wrestling together, wrestled Mike more than anybody else in the business. He's been a great friend for 45 years. He's more like my brother than anything. And we pretty much talk every week or text and do all kinds of stuff on the phone together. And if I'm down and I need to laugh, this is a guy I call because he always makes me laugh. But Mike McClaskey, great to have you back with us.
Hey, great to be back, guys. This is exciting for me. I don't get out of the house much, and now I'm getting into tens of thousands of people's houses.
Yeah. And it's a great shirt. I love that shirt.
I was going to say, wearing the swag, man. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Representing.
Even though I was dissed on the movie, I'll wear the swag. I'll represent.
That's right. That's right. Our last episode, we talked about that a little bit. Now, as we pick up, Mike, we were talking as we kind of spent some time with you last time. We talked about your wrestling career. We talked about the step and the jump into movies. I want to back up into the wrestling career just a minute. One of the things that we tend to ask folks when we talk to them, as you think back over your career, I mean, who was, I mean, if you feel comfortable telling us, I mean, who was the toughest guy that you worked with, and what made it so difficult that you can remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's a very easy one for me to remember. So a guy named the Raging Bull, Manny Fernandez, is fairly well known in the wrestling business. Any of your wrestling fans will know who he is. So I was doing TV in Tampa for Steve Kern and Mike Graham, and Dusty Rhodes had a little bit of say in it. And Steve wanted me to work with Manny Fernandez. Typically for me, I like to go sit down with a person and talk over what it is you want to do. How you work, what kind of pace do you want to keep? Is there anything special you want to do? I went over to Manny, and he couldn't have been any ruder to me. Ignored me, physically sloughed me off. Said he'd get with me later in a broken English. I tried again. He sloughed me off because he was busy talking to the other guys. And Chris will fill you in on that. When you're up here in the wrestling business and someone is here in the wrestling business, this person doesn't really want to have anything to do with you. So he sloughed me off and sloughed me off. Well, we went out and had our match. And he has a particular finish that he likes to use in the match. And I have a hard time hearing, and especially if you have broken English. So I couldn't understand anything he was saying in the ring. Not that I didn't do the finish right, but I didn't do the finish right. And but we finished it anyway. We did what we were supposed to do. And apparently when he dropped me straight on my neck off the second rope, which again, I was in good enough shape that I just bounced up and came walking in. But when I came walking in the locker room, there were 20 jaws on the floor physically because they were watching it on the monitor and they didn't think I'd walk in under my own power. And I did, and I got to watch it later, and I saw, oh yeah, he dropped me on my neck. Oh, look at that. So that was one of the only times where I went to the promoter, Steve Kern, and I said, Steve, I love you to death, man, but I said, I will never work with that guy again. So please just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Again, to me, it showed disrespect.
Yeah.
disrespect to me. We're both in there. We're both have to get up and go to do whatever it is we have to do the next day. And he was disrespectful to me and not going over what it was he wanted to do. There's only been a couple of occasions where I've said no. Another guy was in the locker room and he was smoking a cigarette and drinking a beer, and the promoter said, "That's who you're working with." And after sitting there for about 3 or 4 minutes watching him, I went up to the promoter and I said, if it's all the same to you, I'd rather not. Again, that's not how I live my lifestyle, and I'd rather not. And he didn't. He put me against someone else, which is rare because usually they say, "Well, then you can go home."
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mike, there's a lot of people that don't realize how at the end of a career of a professional athlete, there's a lot of guys that just don't have anything because they haven't been fiscally responsible. I know you see, professional football players that made an enormous amount of money at the end of their career. They're broke. Basketball players, the same thing. But I would say professional wrestling is probably at the top of the list as far as that goes, with guys who were really at the top of the ladder, that when they got through, they didn't have anything. And I know you and I saw that when we were in the business, and it's like, you better have something to fall back on. I know I asked you at the end of our previous show about advice that you would give to a young person. I wanted to throw this in, even though it's your interview. I wanted to throw this in that if you're getting into professional wrestling, you need to have something to fall back on, because the majority of people, when people say to me, how do I get into professional wrestling? I often say it is easier to be abducted by a Lebanese terrorist on February the 31st than it is to break into big time professional wrestling. Most of the time, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But you fell back with movie stunt work. You're also an electrician. You have a lot of talents. Do you think that's good advice to give a young person?
Yeah. So, Jeff, one of the things that you have to realize is every single one of these guys is a business. The guys that you see on TV wrestling, that they are a business. Now, if you've never run a business in your life, if you've never owned a business in your life, if you've never managed a business in your life, how do you think you're going to do with that business?
Not so well.
Not very well. Nope. So they are a business. Let's take someone like Jake the Snake Roberts, which I don't have a problem picking him out. He was a business. Jake the Snake Roberts was a business. He took all of his money and instead of investing it and putting it aside, it went straight up his nose or wherever. Blew it, and that was typical. And Chris saw it. I saw it. You're a business. Set this thing up as a business. Angelo Poffo. Jeff, I know you probably don't know that name, but he was the father of the Macho Man and Lanny Poffo. Mm-hmm. So I had the opportunity to spend a couple of years traveling with Angelo Poffo. Here's a guy that his wife would make him dinner, and he would take dinner with him so that he didn't have to spend money after the show to eat. And so that's a business move. How do you keep your expenses low? Well, you make a sandwich and you bring it with you. He drove a Mercedes Benz that had 450,000 miles on it because he didn't want to spend the money. The story was we were going to a show in Crystal River and it started raining. He turned his wipers on. All it did was smear the windows. I literally had my head out of the window, the passenger side, telling him where he was on the road because he but I mean, he's the far extreme, and his nickname in wrestling was the Miser. Yeah. But as Chris was saying, if somebody came to us today and said, "I want to do this," I'd say, "Fine, set yourself up as a business so that every penny that comes in, just like any other business, Jeff, you have a business. Your church is your business. You have to know where every penny's going. And it's the same thing in wrestling. Set it up as a business.
Yeah. Well, when you, and you're kind of, we're already kind of getting to that topic. As you look back at your career as a wrestler, particularly, what lessons do you bring out of wrestling that you can apply to life for whoever? Obviously, think of yourself as a business is certainly one of them. But what else? What else out of the wrestling ring?
So I've always had three things that I tell young people, primarily in the wrestling business. One, do what the promoter asks you to do. Chris, if Chris is the promoter and he says, Mike, you're wrestling Jeff tonight and it's going to go 20 minutes and Jeff is going to win, guess what? That's what I do. Now, you take that out of the wrestling scene and you put it into work. Do what the promoter asks you to do. Your promoter is your boss. Do what your boss asks you to do. Now, obviously, there are boundaries where you're going to say, no, I'm not comfortable doing that. So, number one, do what the promoter asks you to do. Number two, make sure no one gets hurt, starting with your opponent. Again, in a work setting, make sure no one gets hurt, starting with the guy working next to you. When Chris and I wrestled, my number one priority was make sure Chris doesn't get hurt. I'm not saying me. I'm putting him first because that's number two. Make sure your opponent doesn't get hurt. And number three is make sure you get paid. There was only, when people would say to me, what was your record? I'd say 248-2. And they'd say, really, every time I saw you wrestle, you lost. I said, oh, I don't look at it that way. I have no idea what that record is. I only didn't get paid twice. So when you ask me what my record is 248 times I got paid, twice I didn't get paid. So do what the promoter asks you. Make sure no one gets hurt, starting with your partner or your work partner. And three, make sure you get paid. So yes, those are my three golden rules that I took from wrestling and I brought them into life with me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, complete side note, you got paid when you wrestled here, right?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. I just want to make sure that we weren't one of those losses. Now I think back on I don't remember that part of it. So, okay. Yeah. Well, now I feel better about it. We're getting ready to take a break, and then we're going to come back and continue our conversation. Don't anybody go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey, thanks for watching The Clash. And Jeff, the holidays aren't too far away. You do know that, right?
I've heard that, yeah.
And you're not one of those people that waits till the last minute, are you?
No, I'm ahead of the game.
You're ahead of the game?
Yeah.
And I bet you our audience is ahead of the game. And I know that I don't want to buy junk. I want to buy something good, something that's entertaining, something that will keep my attention. Just something that's pretty good. And would you know about anything?
I do. I'm aware of a cornucopia of gifts that are available for our audience to pick up. And that's why I use the word cornucopia.
I love that word. Yeah.
And I would suggest that they visit DixonOnDisney.com. Mm-hmm. That's a great place to start. And from there, you get sent to all sorts of different places. But, it's funny you mentioned that. I've written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 novels. Mm-hmm.
You got a new one coming out, don't you?
Got one coming out in January, as a matter of fact. That would be number 6, called Saving the Magic Kingdom. You can pre-order it now, and if you pre-order it now, it's actually cheaper, and that helps get the distribution out in some of the stores that are out there. Awesome. I have 2 nonfiction Disney books that are out there. I have a novella that's out there, and according to the rumor mill, there's another Christmas novella that will be released at Thanksgiving.
How awesome is that?
Another Christmas story. Now, a novella is a book that wants to be a novel when it grows up, but it's a lot shorter because it doesn't take as long to write. All that's out there. All that's available. Again, as I said, a cornucopia. DixonOnDisney.com. Love for you to come, love for you to shop, tell your family, tell your friends, and buy gifts for those people that you really love. Because if you really love them, you'll buy from that website. And if you don't love them, well, you won't.
What are you doing Christmas Eve?
I'm glad you asked. And, our folks here could join us. If you are in the Central Florida area, join us here at the Church at 434 in Winter Springs at 7 o'clock, Christmas Eve night for a candlelight service. It's outside under the stars. And if you can't be with us, go to touchandchange.net or the Church at 434 app, or you can find us on Facebook. And we're streaming live, and we would love to have you join us from 7 to 8 o'clock. We'll see you on Christmas Eve. In the Bible, the church is called the body of Christ. Hopefully, you have a place that you call home when it comes to church, and hopefully you attend there, and hopefully you find a connection with other people. But also, we live in a world where we are connected digitally, and online you're more than welcome to come visit the Church at 434. That's where Chris Whaley and I are part of that staff. The website, touchandchange.net, touchandchange.net. Use the QR code to get there. You'll find all sorts of resources that will help you in your journey of faith. We look forward to seeing you at the Church at 434. Welcome back to The Clash. We are talking, Mike, when we talked last time, just before the break, we were kind of talking about life lessons. Number 3 was make sure you get paid. You have a follow-up story for that as we kind of kick off this segment?
Yes, I do. Chris had mentioned the great Malenko in our previous show, and we were both fortunate enough to work for him. Great guy, and he was an evil guy that was a great guy. So I worked for Larry, the great Malenko, and he booked me for $60, and I went and wrestled, did my thing, and there wasn't anybody there. There was maybe 20 people there, so he took a bath on this. So after the show, he came up to me, and he gave me 2, 4, 6, and I took 120 out, and I handed him $40 back. And he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Larry, I don't need that. I have a day job. I do great on my day job." I said, "This $20, again, 1980s, this $20 will put gas in my car, a pizza and a soda on the way home." I said, you need it more than I do because you took a bath." The cute thing about that story is from that point on, he always called me to do his shows, and I never took any money from him because it was my way of paying him back respect-wise.
Sure.
I said, "Larry, I'll work for you whenever you need me to work for me, but I will not take money from you because I owe you this. That's my way of paying you back."
That's cool.
He was a great guy. He really was.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, Mike, you told us about, the difficulty with the match. What would you say was the greatest match you ever had?
Anytime I stepped in the ring with you.
There you go.
Seriously.
I didn't mean
Seriously.
that. I didn't mean that.
So, Jeff, what would happen would, let's say, Jeff, you're the promoter, and you would call me, either Dan Bench or Prince Ananka or Mike McClaskey, and you would say, "I have a match on the 25th. It's in Ocala. Would you like to be there?" And I'd say, "Sure." My first question to you is, do you have someone for me to work with? 9 out of 10 times, the answer would be no. And I'd say, "If you don't mind, I've got somebody I'm going to bring." And you say, "Sure." And the money's going to be the same. And then I would immediately hang up and call Chris. And I would say, "We're booked on the 25th. This is the show. This is what we're going to do." You don't know how good it made me feel to know I was stepping into the ring with him. There were no concerns. There were no questions. There was no worrying about whether or not I was going to be able to make it out alive or not.
Sure.
So anytime I got to step into the ring with Chris, it was a great show and a great match. Yeah, seriously.
Okay, now when you guys so together, as you kind of spent time and you would kind of work together, how much conversation took place of who was going to go over on any given night? I mean, were you kind of alternating, or was it always the evil side of you?
I got a secret. I got a secret for you. It paid the same.
Yeah.
Didn't
Didn't
matter.
matter, right?
Yeah, I got to tell this
Didn't
story.
matter.
I was doing a benefit. I was at my second church, and I was doing a benefit, and it was a great show. I mean, we had Dory Funk Jr., we had Bugsy McGraw, we had Ravishing Rick Rude, Dick Slater. We had, a lot of big names on there.
Me?
Well, yeah.
Me?
Well, I had not worked in about 4 years, I think. So Mike says, "Hey, there's an independent show over in Tampa. Why don't you come over, get back in the ring? Let's see how you're doing after, see how rusty you are." I said, "Okay." So I go over there. Mike and I are in the dressing room, and I had one of those old camera shoulders, shoulder cam with the camera that put on your shoulder. It was one of the old ones. And in walked Rocky Johnson and Dwayne Johnson, The Rock.
Sure.
Of course, Dwayne had just graduated from the University of Miami. He was playing pro football, or he had played some pro football. But anyway, I'm talking to The Rock, and I said, "Hey man, you're gonna play football?" And he says, "No, I'm gonna wrestle like my dad." And I'm saying, "Man, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? You could play football and make millions of dollars." No, I'm gonna wrestle like my dad did. And I said, "Well, you're crazy." And then the story is, Jeff, the next year, Dwayne went to the WWF, which is WWE now, made $6 million, wrote a best-selling book, and became a movie star. And now he has his own movie company. He's like one of the top movie icons in the business today. So it's a great thing that he did not listen to Chris's advice.
So true. Yeah. That's funny.
Hey,
Chris and I were a few of the guys that again, because of our personality, because of our faith, if you will, we had no problem talking to anybody in the locker room. Nobody else came up to Rocky and Dwayne and talked to them. We had no problem. I won't say that we were trying to minister to these guys, but we were definitely trying to show them, hey, we're all people. We're all in this big boat together. Let's not worry about it. Let's not do this. Let's not do that. And let's carry on conversations. Let's talk about what's going on.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, who do you who was the greatest influence in wrestling to you?
Terry Funk. I don't know how familiar Jeff is with Terry Funk, but I modeled. Hey, excuse me for 1 second, guys. Yellow. No, I'm not doing anything. What's going on? I'm messing with you. Terry Funk. Again, here's a guy that would come out and people would throw things at him, boo at him, spit on him, but the nicest guy in the world, the hardest working guy in the world. And I physically tried to emulate him and physically tried to model myself after him. His work ethic, the way he did it in the ring, put it all out there. Worked against everybody, worked all over the world. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do that. But yeah, Terry Funk would be the guy that I tried to emulate. I saw myself in him when I saw him on TV, and that's what I tried to do.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, when you emulate Terry Funk, I mean, a lot of folks hear that they think of the part of Funk's career when he was doing the extreme wrestling stuff, because he did some crazy stuff. Now, did you emulate that as well, or did you stay away from that? Okay.
No, we both drew the line at when somebody said we want you to go up a ladder or go up a scaffold. No thanks. Not now. Let's get the next guy to do that. Yeah, we had to get up and go to work the next day. So
I was going to say because Funk either was, or his persona that he sold was that he was half a bubble off half the time. It seemed like he was always just like over the edge. So, but fun. Oh my gosh, I can remember watching him as a kid.
Yeah.
And the matches he was in, they were incredible, and booed him a lot. I booed him a lot.
Yeah, and no telling how many movies he was in. Also.
Oh yeah.
I know he was in Roadhouse. He was in Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone, and he did several others. But Terry was great.
Mike, how did you decide you were going to make the jump to movies? Did you have an in somehow in the industry when you decided it was going to happen?
No, I didn't, unfortunately, and you really needed an in. I had an agent, which even surprised me, and I did some. I had an agent primarily because of my wrestling, and the agent called me one day and said, "You want to audition for a movie?" And I said, "Sure." She says, "Well, you need a headshot," which I didn't have a headshot. I had a buddy that I went to high school with that was a photographer. He took some pictures. I literally got the 8x10 headshot, and it was still dripping water as I was standing in line to audition. And because I was told that you won't get the part without a headshot. The guy behind me didn't have a headshot, and I'm like, come on, dude, don't you know anything? You got to have a headshot. Again, his mind's dripping. And long story short, I got the part, and that was my first role. Did some stunts in it, got my Screen Actors Guild card. I was 280 pounds, and I could speak. I was Chris and I. One of the great things about us is we were eloquent. We could always speak and carry on a conversation. So whenever somebody had to do that, we were two of the first people that would pick to do it. Yeah.
Wow, it's fun. And one last thing, I know Chris got something to ask you. Behind your shoulder, I am looking at the presidential seal. That is the belt from the book, right, Mr. President? Is that what I'm seeing back there?
That is the belt. Yes, the belt. Donald Trump, if you're listening, we'd love to give you one of these, Mr. President.
That'd be
We'd love
nice.
to have you wear this proudly. Yeah. Chris has a belt, his Mass Saint belt from the movie. So this is my first belt, my only belt.
Well, and,
yes.
and Mike, I'm teeing you up. This is a great moment to promote the book.
Chris,
there it is.
Chris and my political comedy. I just happen to have a copy right here.
There you go.
Chris and my political comedy. You can reach out to either Chris or myself. Go to mrpresidentbook.com. It's sold through Amazon. One of the great things about Chris and myself on our website is both our personal phone numbers and our personal email address. One of the hardest things in writing and in doing this is getting in touch with someone. You could have the greatest thing in the world. You could have the Bible. If they wrote the Bible today, guess what? It would sit on a publisher's desk for 5 years. That's the hardest thing is getting someone to read it, and then you say, oh, well, I know this guy that it would be perfect for. Guess what? You can't get their email address. You can't get their phone number. And if you mail it to them, it comes back to you. But Chris and I are very transparent. We believe that if you want to get in touch with us, you can get in touch with us. That's not an issue.
That's mrpresidentbook.com.
There you go.
There you go.
We're all about the shameless promotion. We have no shame when it comes to promoting stuff around here. We throw that out in a heartbeat. So I'm glad you got a chance to do that. Mike, I know Chris is going to wrap up here with you in a minute. Thank you so much for being with us again. It's been fun. I look forward to seeing you here down the road. But Chris, go ahead and get us out of here.
Well, I hope our audience. I hope you've got that special friend that knows you as you are, with all your mistakes, and still loves you in spite of it. And that's the kind of relationship that Mike and I have. I mean, he knows my worst parts, he knows my best parts, and regardless of it, we're still brothers in Christ, and very, very thankful for your friendship. And for all of you folks out there, just remember, don't tap out.